Welcome to the second episode of the ULI Trends podcast series. My name is Dee Brewer. I'm the executive director of the Downtown Alliance in Salt Lake City. This podcast is intended to be a lead up to our key topics and themes in our industry at the ULI Annual Trends Conference, November 12th at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Salt Lake City. Today's series will focus on urban retail entrepreneurism and along the Wasatch Front. And we have the owner of Matteo's Italian Ristorante and Strada by Matteo. His name is Matteo.
Yes, sir.
How do you pronounce your last name, Matteo?
Sogne.
Sogne. And partner of the Bar X group, Jeff Barnard. Welcome, Jeff.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. We've had a chance to work on some projects and some initiatives downtown over the years. Before we dive in, I'll start with you, Jeff. Could you tell us a little bit about the businesses, the retail operations you've been involved with most recently?
Well, most recently, Bar X, Beer Bar, Cotton Bottom, and the Eating Establishment, which is in Park City, is what I'm operating now with my very qualified partners. So,
And your family has a history in soft goods retail as well, and I'm sure that's informed what you're doing now.
yeah, I mean, I've been influenced by my parents' work at the Chalk Garden that they opened in the 60s, a fashion clothing store that was really influential in my life. And then my brother and I opened J.M.R. Chalk Garden, started in 1984. We had stores from Ogden to Provo, and those were kind of casual clothing stores. And that was really fun. For 32 years, I think we did that.
Both of those retailers, venerable Salt Lake brands and successful retailers.
You know, it was really fun. And the internet caused us to have to change. You know, the malls weren't what they used to be, and that style of retail I don't think works very well anymore. So I had to switch to the only other thing I knew, which was eating and cocktails and drinking wine and that type of thing. So I was kind of forced to switch, and I use a lot of the same skills that I use in retail with the bars and restaurants.
Understandably, that hospitality element stretches across both of those. I think the journey of your operations sort of mirrors what's happening, and I can speak to downtown where we're seeing much more hospitality, food and beverage that has replaced a lot of the retail and the clothing retail that we used to see more of.
I think that's the case. That I live by Foothill Village, and they're redoing that. And, you know, if I owned that, I'd be filling it up with at least 50% food and beverage. I don't know what they're doing, but I'm just watching them do that. And, you know, I think the clothing and stuff like that's a little bit old fashioned now. There's a niche for a few things, but that's tougher.
I agree. Matteo, you're a relatively new restaurateur, but a very successful one. Tell us a little bit about your operations.
Thank you. It's a good start for sure. Success rate going to be in 15, 20 years, like these people next to leap. But yeah, we opened in September 2023. We opened on a small location by Liberty Park on 9 South. And then we had the opportunity to move downtown last year, around a little bit later than this time of the year. And we just decided to move downtown because I am seeing what's happening downtown, and I just wanted to be a part of it. I believe not only having one restaurant because I want to offer the highest possible quality service, food, and everything. So I'm not a big believer of having the same concept of the restaurant in many locations. So I went to have one restaurant because I believe in being the best. I was raised with the number one or no one mindset. And so I believe in being the best we can. So we moved downtown to be a part of it. And then now we're actually opening a little sandwich shop. And that one is going to be something that we can open multiple locations across the valley. In the last couple of years, we had a lot of people ask us, hey, come open in Provo, come open in Sadie, come open in Draper. And I was told them, unfortunately, Matteo is one, and That's it.
Yeah.
But I think the Strada sandwich shop is a very fun idea to explore a little bit more.
Where's Strada located?
Strada is located on 30 East and 300 South. So it's where Toasters used to be.
Yeah. It's 300 South, but it's not 30 East. It's
30.
30 East.
30 East, 300
Got it.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Great.
And it's the heart of downtown, right by the Wells Fargo building. So Matteo restaurant again, it's more of an upscale experience. So we're only open for dinner 7 days a week. Strada will be open for lunch and dinner. So we'll be open all day long from like 10:30 to 11 in the morning until 9 p.m., which caters both to the business people and also, I mean, there's a lot of people that work downtown, that work 8, 10, 11 hours, and then like 6 o'clock, they're tired. I don't want to go home and make dinner, but at the same time, we want to offer something healthy at a everyday price and a very high quality option. So the food is made in the same exact kitchen. It's the same exact food, same exact kitchen, just a bit more affordable because our overhead is a lot lower. It's this small space. And I think it's a fun concept to explore.
Well, I thought that I had enjoyed your restaurant on 9th South. Thought that was a very bold move to change locations just after a year or so. I'll count that courageous. Why did you make that change? You mentioned you saw what was happening downtown, but what were those conditions?
There's not a lot, but there's a few different factors. The biggest one, I believe, is we saw what's happening downtown with this SEG group, with the hockey being brought in. And I got the fortune to do a lot of business actually with hockey and the basketball team. So it's a lot easier for us to do catering. We do a lot of business with the NBA, and when they come in, they want to have a separate route, like 65, 70 people and the separate entrance. So we have that in that space. So I believe on 9 South, it was a great, charming location. It was more of a destination restaurant. Now downtown, we're more in the thick of things. And I'm a huge fan of what's happening downtown. I think the next 10 to 12 years are going to be absolutely amazing. And when I moved in, I wanted to sign a 21-year lease, but just because I'm that convinced of what's happening downtown.
I love it. I love to hear that. And I share your enthusiasm for downtown. You could say that's my job, but I had that enthusiasm before I came into this job. Let me share a few things as we get into our discussion here. I want to serve up a few facts for our listeners, but you may have some response to these as well. We're very blessed to have an elite economy in Salt Lake City in Utah. We trend above the national average. We are consistently ranked one of the best economies. Utah is one of the best economies in the nation and number one currently. Along the Wasatch Front, there have been a lot of culinary destinations similar to other peer markets like Austin, Denver, and Nashville, but we don't always get, I think, due credit for what's happening in food and beverage here. We surprise and delight a lot, right? People come to town, leave saying, I had no idea what was going on in Salt Lake. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to hear too.
It is, and it's accurate. A lot of your competitors, I would view as partners in many ways too, because you all contribute to that perception. The Downtown Alliance does some data collection and publishing. We're seeing customer days growing downtown substantially. But in the area that we're seeing them growing most is among, we look at residents of downtown, workers downtown, and we look at visitors to downtown. People, we call everybody a visitor who doesn't live or work downtown. That grew 4% last year after some very steep increases, but they make up 63% of all the customer days downtown. So we're really moving to a social economy. You mentioned hockey and basketball. Last year, ticket sales, not just for sports, but arts and entertainment, so I'm talking about Eccles Theater, Capitol of Bravenel, those went up 18.4% last year. That's tremendous. And that growth in the entertainment economy bodes well for entrepreneurs and operators like yourself. Over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of F&B operators that have come into downtown and other urban areas around the state. There were casualties during COVID, but we saw about a 1-to-1 replacement of those. When somebody, you could argue that it did cull the herd a little bit. Some of the less successful operators didn't survive that, and others have thrived, and new operators like yourself have come in, and that's great. So between the strong economy and the visitor growth, we're seeing local operators and out-of-state groups looking to expand in the market. And I think it's an exciting time for the food and beverage industry. It's not easy. I know that. I represented restaurants for a number of years, and people would ask me, would you want to open a restaurant? I said, I would love to open a restaurant. I would never want to operate a restaurant. You know all too well there are 1,000 ways to fail every day. It's hard work. So my first question, Jeff, I'll start with you again. You both have growing restaurant groups that have been successful. Why Utah? Why Salt Lake?
Well, I was born here. So, that I guess is where I landed. And I've always thought that I landed in a very, very good spot, because some of this other cities that you mentioned, even bigger, was like Los Angeles and New York. I think our city wants to be like those. And so I think restaurants and clothing stores and other things, if you bring ideas from these other cities, they work well here. And sometimes people are kind of surprised, but we can get a lot of inspiration from those cities, bring them to Salt Lake City, and there's enough sophistication here, and the way our city kind of lays out, I think it all works perfect for that. And there's probably a lot of ideas still out there to be done. There's a lot of room for growth with more cool stuff in Salt Lake. And when someone does something, I was thinking to myself, well, they saw that in Denver, or they saw that in LA or Portland or something like that. So that's why.
Yeah. Matteo, you're not from here. Why did you build your business here?
I moved here in 2016. So in 2015, I was a national team swimmer back home in Italy, and I missed the Olympics. And I said, I want to keep swimming, but I also want to get a degree while doing that. So I sent an email to like 60, 70 schools all over America. If these are my times, these are my grades, I would love to come swim with you guys, at least to check it out, at least to try. If it doesn't work out, I learn English. I go back to Italy 1 year. That's good. And when I was in the final, like 4 or 5 schools, where was Columbia, Manhattan, there were a bunch of different schools. And then I was, okay, if I'm going there to school, if I'm there for school, I'm going to a place where I'm staying after school, right? So I started doing a lot of research, and I learned I went down this whole rabbit hole by Utah. That's basically everything you told about earlier. I was like, whoa, that's an unbelievable place. It's clean, it's healthy, serious people are nice, economy's thriving, it's a very good for culture as well. And I was like, oh, that's a good place to live in. That's a place where I can see myself living. Moved in, actually, it's hard when you go with big expectation, but it exceeded all my expectations. I fell in love with it. My parents came to visit 2-3 times a year. And then when I graduated, I said, I want to be in Utah, and I also want to, I don't want to say give back to the community, but I want to contribute to make the community better. And I decided to contribute by doing what I love. I have 2 degrees, so that's also a soft fault if I had to go get a real job. But I love restaurants. I love the food and beverage industry. And so my parents actually moved here in 2023 to help me open up the restaurant. And we all love Utah. So it's a very easy place to call home. And it's a place where, coming from Italy, where nothing works, is a place where everything works. It was mind-blowing. And it still is. Like, we're opening the sandwich shop now. From the beginning to the end to get a business license, like maybe 4 or 5 days. You call an office, they answer within 3 phone rings. It's unbelievable. So it's a great place to call home.
It's helpful to have that outside perspective. I think you personify something I say all the time. This is a very sticky place. People come here for a lot of reasons, to ski, to go to school, and they stay for the reasons you talked about. Matteo, what are some of the largest challenges you see in opening a business and operating a new business here?
There's a couple. The first one, as a outsider, to open up a restaurant, it's a high entry cost because unfortunately during COVID a lot of places went out of business, so it was easier to get a turnkey space. Right now there's basically nothing turnkey already, and if there is, it's something that there's a reason it failed. So the entry cost is very high, at least for my experience. And most of the challenges for us finding a good team, a good personnel has been relatively easy. We've been very blessed to have an outstanding team. But I hear a lot of people saying that the biggest struggle is to find people that are dedicated, are devoted to the business, people that actually care. And to me, that's the number one priority when I hire someone. I can teach you everything about food and beverage. Be with us for long enough, I'll teach you everything, but I cannot teach you how to care. Yeah, I cannot teach you how to wake up in the morning and be like, you know what? I want to make that place 1% better. And I think those two are probably the biggest challenges, to find people that genuinely care about your business. And of course, myself, I have to set the example. I have to be the one there. And I think those were the challenges. And we were talking earlier, if you have something cool, people are going to come. Like Soy City is a different and broad enough market that whether you open something very, I don't want to say revolutionary, but something very new or something very mainstream, people are still going to come. And people in Soy City and Utah, they love supporting local businesses. And that's one thing that we're blessed with. But finding the staff, I think it's very hard.
I hear staffing from a lot as their biggest challenge. Jeff, what would you add to the conversation about challenges for opening and operating a business?
I feel like if we found the right opportunity and the right equation and everything, that would just go for it. So I don't really see a lot of, but our problem is with 4 restaurants, it's kind of spread out. I feel like our plate's pretty full. So it's more a matter of us just finding, and which we do, we look somewhat, but mostly we're focused on running what we have. And I don't really see a lot of problems in opening a new one. I mean, I agree with all the ones you said, but they're all overcomable, so that you can end up with a successful business. And I think the size of our city, the community hears about things pretty fast here. The word travels pretty fast. It's pretty easy to do something and have everyone come and check it out. So as long as you do it right, then I think you have success, especially if you had a reputation for doing things well, people are going to show up. So
I think that's true. There's an appetite for quality and an enthusiasm for local operators as well. Matteo, the Urban Land Institute, there are a lot of developers there, and the real estate community is anticipating food and beverage needs. And are they anticipating the right things, or are they building the right kind of property? What advice or what would you ask the development community to do to make it easier to deliver a quality product?
Yes and no, meaning there's a lot of new spaces being built downtown, but there's also a lot of unlisted few office buildings being reconverted to homes. So actually, the building above us used to be office building, and there used to be all the garden on the bottom. Yeah, which, unfortunately, we're the second best Italian restaurant that's ever been in that building. On the top used to be
definitely an
buildings.
upgrade.
Yeah, we did try. And then top was office buildings, and then they were converted to condos. And we notice it's hard because it's an old bone building, right? But there's a lot of new developers that are building great buildings downtown. And I do think that the buildings that were built like 8 to 10 years ago were not as good. In 2019, before COVID, we actually started looking at buildings that were the first ones with like residential on top and retail on the bottom. And the first ones were a little challenging. They were a little tricky because I think people had to kind of grasp what food and beverage needed. It's a very unique niche. But I think the last few I've been checking out, and again, like we always try to keep our eye open to everything.
Yeah.
And I think the last few I've checked out are very, very good. Like they're very well built. People understand, especially landlord understand it's a big step to build something from a gray shell. And so I think people are starting to understand that a strong retail actually makes everything above better. Like where I live, with the grocery store on the bottom.
Yeah.
I think that's a reason that at least 40% of the people live there, because it's just easy. If I think strong retail really helps the top, and people start looking at that as retail is an amenity. It's not something that I don't necessarily have to make money on, but it's an amenity for everything upstairs. So I think that's a good change for that.
I want to applaud that. Words I use all the time, and we want to see retail in the building, but also the retail and public space in the neighborhood become an amenity for that. And we need that sort of collective attention on that. Jeff, what would your message be to the development community to make it easier for good operators?
Well, what I like to see, in addition to what Matteo said, is interesting space. Going back to the 80s when I started this, I went to, Fashion Place Mall and the malls, and I just got a rectangle box with nothing interesting in it. And I had to create all the, my brother and I, we had to create the cool vibe inside. Sure. And sometimes you can do that, and sometimes you're less successful. But what I love, like I think the Post District did a really great job, because when you go there, you see interesting buildings and landscaping and so outside the spaces, and I think they did a great job there. And I'm really surprised how well it's doing. But I want to see spaces that are interesting on the inside. They could be interesting shapes, interesting ceiling heights, and not just like around town. I see quite a few for lease signs on the ground floor of these new apartments. And a lot of them haven't been in them, but from the street, look like they're probably the same on the inside. I mean, to me, there's nothing interesting there. They probably haven't put ventilation, for kitchens if they want food and beverage in there. And so I wonder about those. We have a lot of those, and it kind of looks like from the street that they're doing it just because they're told they have to. And they really haven't tried to make them wonderful spaces. I could be wrong about that because I haven't been in them, but it's just what it seems like from the street. But I like to see really interesting space. And when I walk in, I'm my praise going, oh my gosh, I could do that. And I don't want to build everything brand new, or I want to find interesting things already in the space.
Well, you're in 4 separate buildings with historical operations and fit that very bill. And it strikes me that you're both delivering an experience, and part of that experience is a good space to begin with. And kudos on what you've accomplished in what was the Olive Garden space. I was really impressed when I walked in there the first time. You spent your money in the right places, and you created a really great space.
Thank you.
This is the crystal ball question for you. What are the trends that you're seeing in food and beverage that you think are going to inform the next 2 or 3 years of investment that's made in our metropolitan areas in Utah?
Well, trends is a tough thing, because to put your finger on,
That's why you answer first.
that's why I gotta answer first. So my answer is gonna probably be a little bit general and not very specific, but just more great experiences that you see in other big cities, and maybe you see some of it in Salt Lake City too. But I just feel like our city's doing well, like you said, and there's a lot of room for a lot more people to come in with cool things. I'm sure you've been to Low Key Coffee, right? Which has got to be killing it, and I love what they've done. And I've read their story, and people from outside Salt Lake came and did that, and they made it great. And to me, they used a cool old building on a cool old street, your former neighbor, but I love that stuff. And I love both of the restaurants that you did. And I can't wait to go tomorrow to your new one because I'll probably be there. Right. Thank you for that. Yes, they are.
Matteo, what do you think are trends defining the opportunities for food and beverage?
Yeah, I touched briefly on this earlier. I'm focusing mostly on downtown, but I think all over the valley, there's a big change happening. When I moved here almost 9 years ago now, Utah was almost the land of fast food. Like there's a lot of fast food. There still is, but I can see a lot of people looking for quality. I think especially after COVID, so many people are like, whoa, I went to Italy, I went to Spain, I went to Greece, I traveled. And I saw the culture, saw the quality of the ingredients. And to me as a restaurant owner, even the last like 2 years, I saw that there's so many products that I was looking for that was impossible to find. And little by little, with more great restaurants opening up, there's better quality around. So I think the trend over the next few years will be more focused on quality, more focused on not the huge American play, but more about the normal size, quality, and then not having lunch, dinner, and lunch again. Like when you go out having a huge plate, but just having a normal size portion and having quality stuff and a good experience. So I think that's at least part my belief is mostly for downtown. There's not really room for huge portion. People are more looking for quality, more looking for something good, something good overall, like experience and everything. So I think to us, that's kind of what we're focusing on, investing in quality. Yeah, I believe it was very hard. Like when I moved in 9 years ago, there was almost nothing, and there were a few great restaurants here and there, but it was hard. Now I think there's a lot of big groups that are doing a great job, like from the Urban Yo group to everyone else, that they're bringing very good product in, and I think people are starting to realize, well, I'd rather spend maybe $2 more, but have something really good, right? And to me as a restaurant owner, it makes it easier to find quality because we can get together and we can make it happen. Because I'm like, well, what if there's like buying power, split among five groups, but it makes it easier. So I was that kind of.
Thank you. Another question, what would you like to see from municipal government or state government? Is there anything you need from regulators or the government per se to make you successful and others successful?
I would want to focus on the DADS, the Liquor Commission. And right now there are liquor licenses, bar and restaurant liquor licenses available, but every once in a while we dip into talk, when there's nothing available and people want to do things. And so, and then they keep putting rules on us. And it's not unusual that a few years later they change the rule because it didn't work and do it. They wanted, and to me, there's a pattern going back to the 80s. Of them doing that. And I wish they would get more input from the industries, so that there's probably ways to accomplish things that are good ideas that work. And so that's the main, like bureaucracy that I think gets in my way. Another part of it is I like to have product that no one else has. They make it really hard. All of us have to basically buy from them.
Right.
And it's very difficult to find a way to have, be in the fashion business first that was what I worked on every day, is trying to have things that they didn't have next door. And I want to have, whether it's wine or a whiskey or something like that, I'd like to make it easier for me to, in our businesses, to have unique product. So, and it was harder 13 years ago. It's a little easier now, but very difficult.
Yeah. Matteo?
Well, going off what he said, they had a bar, so it's even odder than us. But sometimes, 90% of the wines of our wine list are special order. I got to commit to a full case. Just fine, because when I sell a bottle, right? And I got 12 books. For them, if you got to buy a special mezcal, you got to still commit to 6 or 12 bottles, but you sell 17 shots or 24 per bottle. Right. So sometimes it takes you 2.5 years to go through a case. Like it takes you a year to break even. Right. So it's very hard for that. And going off what he said, I don't want to express my opinion. The people that know me already know my opinion, but it's a very tricky scenario. I wish the government had something that would allow entrepreneurs to be a little more free, especially now where borrowing money is like 8%. It's hard to borrow money to open up something, especially right now, banks, they don't need a penny. So I wish that, especially to see the next step, because I see so many people around the valley that have huge ideas, that have great ideas. You go to food halls, there's the best ramen is in food halls. Why? Because it's hard to open brick and mortar. And so I wish that sometimes the government were a little more on that side of supporting business. And again, they need to be small loans. It doesn't need to be a $2 million loan, So I think something like 0% interest for the first 2 years, for something that allows you to start. So I think that would be a fun idea to explore.
Affordable startup costs, some attention with DABS to the hospitality you're trying to provide. And again, I'll editorialize a little further that, I understand DABS has a responsibility to deter abuse. Well, the restaurant is not really a place where is a really unaffordable place to abuse alcohol. For all the things you want to bring forward, these are specialty and experiential opportunities. They are at the heart of hospitality. And I think that's not always fully appreciated at a state level, that the restricting licenses inhibits hospitality. It doesn't inhibit abuse of the product. So I hope we can get some reform on that. And I hope we can get some dollars shaken loose to help the next entrepreneur.
And just touching base on the abuse, I know that in Utah, you cannot drive more after you had more than one glass of wine. So for us, we had I think 60 or 65 wines by the glass. We have glass of wine that are $180 per glass. But sometimes people want to come in, I want to have a great dish with a great glass of wine, but I'm driving. I can't have the whole bottle. Right. If you record the wine the day after, it doesn't taste as good. So with us, I committed to that part. And I said, it's fine. I want to promote healthy, good dining experience. And that's the reason we have everything by the glass, because I don't want you to have to buy a bottle just to have a good glass with your dinner. And so we wanted to go down that route, which is the healthiest path. But still, it's very hard to do. So I think
sounds expensive too. Is Jimoshi?
Let's see.
Have a leftover, right? And you take it home from.
You deserve a good glass of wine as well.
A good glass of wine, none of the 4 left in the bottle.
Next question. Jeff, what is your process in conducting due diligence on the feasibility of a new concept? How do you determine what's the right location and the right concept?
Wow, that's a complicated question. As we noted before, what I think our group is mostly focused on is trying to find iconic businesses that they're still there, that maybe need some love and maybe some investment and new set of eyes to try to bring them around. So that's a little different than just looking for space to, pop my business into. But if we found, a really cool, iconic place with history, then we just take it almost wherever it is, which I think is an unusual thing that I'm looking for.
Yeah, done that very well.
But, I have been in the position of looking for space, and I think traffic, the rent, this is going to sound weird, but the rent or the occupancy costs to me aren't the most important thing. I see people go look for space, and I can tell they found the space with the lowest rent they could find, and then they go in there. And I don't think they're doing very well often, because to me, it's more important to find, the traffic, or some places need parking, others don't, the different scenarios. But then I try to make sure the occupancy costs, or the rent and the other landlord occupancy costs, I can make sense of that. And I don't start with that.
That's really interesting to hear. Matteo, what's your process for making those decisions about where and how?
Well, thankfully, we're still small enough where we're going to have 4 restaurants, and we'll have 1.5. I'm still busy on the floor every day talking to people, and that's a part I love about my job. I love to be on the floor. So it doesn't matter how busy I will be in the morning, I will always find time to be on the floor at night between like 4:30, 5 o'clock when we open till like 9. And I love talking to people. And talking to people, I love to ask questions. I love to listen to what people have to say. And then I'm a very analytical brain. I have a degree in mathematics, so I'm very analytical. And I love to ask people, what would you like to see? What would you like to change? What's so is it missing? Because thankfully being downtown, there's just so many tourists, and people come in and like, whoa, from the airport to everything else, everything is brand new, everything works, I think it's awesome. And I asked them, what would you like to see? What would you like to change? What would you like to, explore? And asking enough people, I know that if I'm asking a big enough volume of people, I will have already clientele built in, right? And so that's kind of the reason we opened the sandwich shop after, because people are like, well, are you guys going to ever open for lunch? I said, no. And I keep saying no. Why? Because we're not a lunch place. It doesn't work. We have people already, you have people walking at 10 in the morning to prep just for dinner. It will be a 24/7 kind of deal, so it doesn't work. And I start looking for a lunch place. And I think that's the first thing to look at, is the idea, the concept, the offer. And then going off what Jeff said, is the rent is the smallest one of your expenses, because realistically it's like 3 to 5, 7%. Doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, if you pay an extra $2,000 monthly rent, doesn't matter. So I like to go the other way around, is come up with the idea, come up with what the city is craving. Because I basically survey people every night by asking questions. And I think that's the way I go, is like, what are the people craving? What's our clientele craving? And that's kind of how the Michelin Guide was started, Michelin was building tires, and they were like, well, I need you to use your tires, so I'm going to send this to cities. And the restaurants were like, well, at the early 1900s, whoever had the car, where the great client, they was doing it with money. And so they're like, well, I want to be the Michelin guy, because Michelin sends me the people that have a car, right? So you kind of build this synergy, and that's kind of the way I go about exploring the opportunities. And of course, you got to sit down on numbers and everything, but that's what my mom does. She worked at CDRE for 30 years, so she's good at that.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
So you both sort of talked about this idea of the customer, starting with the customer and their experience and what you can deliver there. Do you see some unique aspects to the Utah market, the Utah customer? Are there some things that you would point to that distinguish us from other markets?
Yes, I think Utah customers, and in our case, for restaurant, our guests, they are very open. They're very open-minded. Actually, we still with them earlier, and we had a while ago an experience with 5 different kinds of Parmigiano Reggiano, which was from 12 months to 100 months. And it's something that nobody does in America. People can be like, whoa, they're curious. They're craving something new. They're craving something to sit down and listen and learn. They're creating the story. They're creating all this part, like Loki. Like, they're creating this part. And I think that's very unique. And also a lot of tourists coming in, they tend to be open-minded. So I think that's a unique part I really enjoy and love by Utah is the Utahns. They love to support local people. They love to lift each other up. And in a lot of other markets, especially back home in Italy, everyone goes out and critiques people. Here, people go out and point out what you're doing right. And that's a part I really, really, really enjoy about doing cool stuff here.
Lovely. Jeff, what do you think distinguishes our customers in Utah?
Well, I'm not that familiar with the other cities, but as far as a comparison, but I think they're hungry for cool new things and that they love to support when somebody gets it right and does a few things that they haven't already seen before. And I think there's a lot of ideas that are still available in our city, and but I feel like I've been well supported by our community for a really long time, 40 years or something. They show up with something great and then they are willing to try it and go for it. And I appreciate that.
You've got a store in Park City. Do you think Park City remains an attractive market? I'm just reading a question I was provided here. How do you have to change your concept to cater to a leisure or hospitality community like that on the Wasatch?
I think Main Street in Park City is where our restaurant, the eating establishment is. I think everybody in Park City is killing it to one degree or another. We're really recently, business has been great, and there's lots of people from all over the world in all these big cities, and so you just have to be doing it right. And if you are, they love it. I have people that come in the eating establishment. They'll come to Park City for 5 days, and then they come to our restaurant every day. Can you imagine going somewhere and going to the same restaurant for 5 days? I really can't imagine doing that. I'm really flattered. It happens more than you'd think. And I think there's a lot of good restaurants up there, and the economics are tough up there because the rent's very high. But, I don't verbalize this very often, but you kind of have to raise the prices a little bit to cover all your costs. And once you're set like that, you're a tourist place. People expect to be paying. The eating establishment's one of the more lower price restaurants on the street. Sure. But it's not if it was in Salt Lake, the prices would be even lower. But I love Park City, and I think it's going to be killing it for a long time to come.
Yeah, I think you're right. Matteo, what advice do you have for a group from out of town who is looking to expand their concept in Utah? What guidance would you give them?
Well, I think Utah is a very unique market. As we were talking about earlier, DABS is very unique. There's a lot of very unique niches in the market. It's a market that it took me many years to understand. I think I don't fully understand it yet. Like Park City, I didn't even explore that opportunity yet. I don't think I'm literate enough to start thinking about an opportunity yet because of what you mentioned, the labor being so tricky and everything. So I think Utah is a very unique market. Utah, I think if you go to, we explored the opportunity to move to Vegas, Scottsdale, Denver. I think those are all kind of like very, very well established market. I think with the fact that Utah is so behind in some aspect and is growing so quickly in other, I think it's a very great opportunity if you hit it right, but it can also be a huge bloodbath if you don't do it right, because it's very easy to come in and be seen as a chain. Like, look at recently North Italia just opened in Riverton, they're killing. But there's a lot of other big establishments that did all their due diligence to come in. There's a wine bar from Scottsdale that was looking to come up. They did all the due diligence. They're like, you know what? We're not ready yet. So it really depends what kind of market you're looking for. And I think it's a very challenging opportunity, but like everything challenging, there's huge rewards on the other side. You just have to really understand the market. You don't really have to come in, study, do your research, and you got to be present, because Utah is one of these markets you can read on book and be like, okay, I know. So for me, that's
It strikes me that you're an outlier in that when I think of my top 10 restaurants, I think most of them were created by people that are from here or already had very strong ties here. So your experience of coming here with that mathematical mind, that inquiring mind, I'm so pleased that you've been successful. But I think you're also an outlier in that respect, because I know from my time with Taubman that a lot of national brands came here and did their due diligence, and they couldn't crack the code on this market. Yet there are others who are being very successful. The last question on our list today was, what can our audience expect from your food groups in the future? And, let's say tomorrow.
Tomorrow we are actually opening Strada, Matteo. It's a very fun project. It's actually where I wanted to start. Oh, really? Yeah, I actually looked for a sandwich shop in 2019, 2020, and then COVID happened. Got put on the back burner. And then I was 25, 26 at the time when I started looking in 2021 again. And to have a good sandwich shop, you know, to have a prime location. And whoever owns a prime location, when you have a 25-year-old kid that comes to you, say, I'm going to have the best restaurant in Utah, like, yeah, right on the side of the shoulder. Yeah, we'll talk to you later. All right. And so we opened Matteo first because I wanted to create the brand. Yeah. And maybe on the side a little middle finger to a couple of people. Jokes aside, I wanted to establish the brand. I wanted to establish the bar. Like, when you come to eat at anything that's labeled Matteo, that's a benchmark of what you can expect. We do things with regard to quality, and then after we figure out what the pricing will be. But I just don't want to compromise on anything quality. And this sandwich shop is going to be, to me, a very fun, challenging thing because we want to offer quality at an everyday price. Yeah. So in the next probably 3 to 5 years, Matteo's all the one. That's we have 21-year lease. That's where we are. Yeah, that's it. I would hope to open maybe a couple more sandwich shops around the valley. We have a commissary kitchen that feeds everything, so I would hope to open a couple more. We'll see where, and then maybe start exploring the grocery store option to have a couple like jarred sauces and pasta you can cook at home, or just come to the restaurant and grab it. So I think that's our 5-ish plan.
Well, kudos on establishing that quality bar in such a short period of time, and I'm sure that will serve you well. Jeff, what's next for your group?
I think what everybody can count on from our group is that we're going to be supporting all the bars and restaurants in Salt Lake and surrounding areas. I think we're a bunch of foodies, and we were that way before we started any of these. And I love going to your restaurant and others and bars, and but we're just always going to be doing that. And I don't know if there's another location. I mean, we ever want to reproduce one of ours, we just want, so if we get a fifth, it would be a fifth new concept. So I feel like our plate's pretty full right now, but we love being in this industry. All of us are, and all my partners and my parents and family, we're all foodies and we love it. So we're going to stay out there and keep dining as much as we can.
Well, I had a call this morning asking if I could step in and do this lead this conversation today, and my first thought was, no way. I had to cancel something else, but then I saw who I'd be talking to, and couldn't resist the opportunity. Kudos! Thank you for what you're doing in the market, and look forward to those next food and beverage wins and experiences that I know you'll create.
Thank you.